I think it looks cute. And my mind's like, whatever. All right, there we go. Share your screen with your audience. Click this button, set up an overlay.
Is that a bag on it?
Do not worry.
Listen.
Do you want your glasses? Put your glasses on.
No, I don't need it for I need it for distance, and I don't have to read anything there. I got my notes here.
Okay, so we're gonna try to figure this out together. Hello, hello. So today is Saturday, August the 10th, and Doris and I are finally getting together for the long-awaited, promised AIABPM in a nutshell. So we're both going to attempt this. You've got your notes over here. I've got notes over here. Can you fix that? Yeah. Doris is our IT. So
overcommitment. Okay.
All right. So good news is they already do have the next one scheduled. So there'll be information on that soon too. But I'm going to real quick go over mine, and I guess then Doris will go over hers. So I brought up the agenda from the meeting that we had back in May because, as usual, it was an excellent agenda. And if you go to these type of meetings, typically there will be something like a 101 at the beginning to kind of bring people up to speed. But we don't call this 101. We call it a boot camp because it's not a 101. We share what we have learned throughout the year by looking at other anesthesia groups, from what we do in our auditing, from what we do in our education. And so I think that it's good for both new and experienced anesthesia coding and clinical staff, because the physicians, the CRNAs, the certified anesthesia assistants, you will all learn something when you come to these. And I'm going to slow down. So Doris, you can add if you want to about the boot camp.
No, I agree. I think the retitling of it is great, because even for people who have been in this industry for a while, they're like, wow, that was really helpful to me. So I think if you think about the boot camp as an introduction only, I think it's not just good for coders, but to Kelly's point, clinical staff, physicians. If you're not aware of the how your claim becomes a claim, or what's needed from you, or you've never had documentation education, which we integrate into that, I think that's great, because until they know, like, hey, you might be losing a unit at a time because of this, or coders, these are things to look out for these particular procedures, because it's all these approaches. And if you don't get reports, there are tips. Yeah, I think the boot camp, I'd hate to see it kind of go away, because I think every year, even if we did it with, I remember years ago, it was me, you, and Devana used to do it by herself. And then me, you, and Devana, and then Amy came into it. And it's, everybody brings their own experience, which brings something new to it. So I really think the boot camp it's worth the whatever. I don't know the pricing. But,
well, I don't know if it'll be the same next year, but it's typically about $100. And I say it is the best $100 you will ever spend, because I'm pretty sure you will learn more than that, you know, at least. And one of the examples is recently working with someone where there were discrepancies about how time is reported. Yeah. So if that's just one thing that you learn and you go back and you fix that one thing, you made up your $100 in spades.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what I did is I just took the sessions for the first day and did some little bullet points on them for what did I learn and what did they share. So our Vicki Myckowiak usually does, is there a case on that? We don't have the agenda for next year, but boy, do I love that session, because she shows who did what and what happened to them. And in the past, I've also done some plays on this, where I have taken her cases and then followed it through to say what happened. So help me remember the guy out in Texas that was just, so terrible.
Richard Toussaint.
That's him, Richard Toussaint. So I followed up on him, and he was already out of trouble. He was already out of jail for doing what he did. But a lot of the clinical staff was still in jail. And I went, that's interesting.
That's
inside joke.
That's interesting. And yeah, I think it's one of those points too, as a billing company or a biller or a coder or even a provider or nurse practitioner, it's important to understand for us when we get pushback, which often happens. Some physicians feel like, or providers feel like, you're challenging their clinical practice when you ask these very salient questions. it helps to say, hey, this is not just your risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to ride this train with you.
Exactly.
Orange happens to be one of my favorite colors, but that's when it's on a wall, or I get to choose the pattern in which I wear it.
I don't
Stripes work for me. So yeah, I'm not doing that.
That was unplanned.
So right. It's just impromptu. So I love that case. Is there a case on that? Like I've seen it every year for probably about 10 years, and it's always a little something different. And I think it's important because we can draw parallels. Sometimes the biggest mistake we make, I think, and it's not just anesthesia, I think practices in general, and anesthesia especially, because there's not a lot of examples that we have. You don't want to be the first. If you can see parallels in some of these cases, like, wait, that is similar and that can be aligned with anesthesia because it represents a miss of the claim, and the potential risk came from our AAA meeting.
Yes.
And we'd love to speak with the new physicians, or even some of the ones established through legislative with ASA. And some of them they're blown away to say, wait, remember their fellows, their eyes. Yes. I said, do you know, like the implication is prison? And I don't like to use the P word too bad, but like prison, and they're like, wait, what? Now I want to know about this, because why spend all this money?
Exactly.
I could lose it so quickly.
So Doris has been working hard on trying to get, because we know that residents in the anesthesia field are very busy their first few years. So she's actually spoken with them at the DC meetings that we've been to say, what is your best learning year?
Yeah.
And that we know that was it third year?
They say after CA2.
After CA2, the third year is the best year for that. So if you're a CA, after CA2, come to these kind of meetings, because you will learn something. And then I want to do one more, Tanya Rushing. She's the one in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yes, and she was also out of jail at this point. But as a billing person in the office, she also got into trouble. And what happened with her is she was telling the CRNAs to do something incorrectly. And she made a lot of money like that, because apparently she had to pay back millions. I owned a billing company. I never made millions. I did things the right way.
Right. And
that was a long time ago, but yeah.
It's funny because I don't think her sentence got reduced. Whatever they gave her, I think she just had to serve out or do whatever the penalties were. And yeah, I think that's a good place to park on that too, because it just,
yes,
physicians, practitioners, it's important to ask why. Like I don't know if that's like a good thing with me or that thing with me, but I have the tendency to ask why. Providers, especially if you're seeing this, you need to ask why, right? When someone says, okay, this is why you want to do it, because a lie doesn't have a problem being questioned. And sometimes it's not even an intentional lie, it's a misunderstanding. And it's amazing the folks that will speak so confidently based on something they heard without being able to validate it. So ask why you're being asked to do some of these things. So if you're like, yeah, just add 5 minutes to a case, or sign this and I need you to sign all these areas of the record. And providers are so busy sometimes, I think they do it.
They do it.
Okay. I don't want to touch this twice.
Your expertise, because you're the one who knows. Yeah. So what I like to say to add to that is, if it is your opinion, say it's an opinion. If it is a fact, give the resource. Because the two don't mix. If you say you have to do something this way, you need to prove it to me, because there are resources out there. Are there gray areas? Yes, there are.
Yes.
And that's where sometimes you have to pull in to say, okay, I can't find where you have to do this, but this is why I think it's like this. It's an opinion. Don't have a resource. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, because I agree. There are gray areas. And here's the thing. I look at everything from the perspective of a risk analysis.
Yes.
Again, another flaw or whatever with me, or benefit, I'm not sure.
Benefit.
But I do, because, okay, we can say, I can't tell you where it says that. And I have that dialogue with providers. I can't tell you where it says that, right? So that's where I just did this NAMA's conference. And, what do you do when you're talking to a provider and they're, show me where it says that, right? One case we saw on the ASA forum, someone asked, they said, well, show me where a provider said they want to bill under another provider because they just started, they're short staffed, they got a provider, they want to start the provider tomorrow, but credentialing is going to take 30, 60, whatever, 90 days. What do we do? And they said, we're being told to bill this claim under another provider. And the provider's like, well, show me where it says you can't do that. And that's one of those cases. Well, okay, it's great. I can't show you where it specifically says you cannot bill the claim for one provider under another outside of teaching or locum tenens, but
there is a case on that.
Right.
And in that case, they paid back a lot of money. So it can be proven by the ramification of what happened when they did that, but you're not going to specifically find something that says, or you might not specifically find something that says to do that.
Yeah, because it's too niche, but I can say, listen, I go through the evaluation questions. Okay, so why are you not billing that claim under the provider who performed it? Well, because they're not enrolled. Okay, and what's the consequence of them not being enrolled? What if you bill them and they're not enrolled? Well, it'll get denied, so it's not going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens if you bill it under the other provider? It will get paid. So I can show you where a misrepresentation of the claim or the difference in payment versus non-payment has risk for you. So it's not always black and white, the specific example that you're looking for, but you can find parallels to protect you. So yeah, I think that is the case on that is a really great session. And I love it every year, and I can see it every year, to be honest.
100%. Me too. So next is the No Surprises Act and the Independent Dispute Resolution. Jim Bobeck, who spoke at the St. Louis meeting, came back and did like a whole session, which was fantastic. So I just wrote down a few of the nutshell things that he was seeing where the insurance companies were making either $0 or $1 offers, which they considered as not an offer at all. And it's not. That's not a concession when you're trying to make it fair for both sides. So even though anesthesia is winning 90% of the dispute resolutions, and I'm going to let Doris speak to this after I talk about the Greg Murphy one, because she actually was at the DC meeting as well, where they gave a little bit of extra on this. So ASA did a Non-Payment Enforcement Act article, wrote about it, and Dr. Greg Murphy introduced a bill. So it's not been enacted into law, and I will have a resource at the end. But did you meet Dr. Murphy? Was that the one?
Yes.
He went up and said, "Take my picture with you."
Yeah, I'm Greg Murphy and Andy Harris. Those two met at Legislative, and I wanted to bring to their attention some of the things that they may not kind of be aware of. And I made the recommendation. I'm like, listen, if we are penalizing providers, and we have a real firm system on how we're penalizing providers when they are non-compliant, why not copy and paste that for payers? Why not make them pay triple the damages? Why not put large civil monetary penalties on there and maybe let that get to some of the providers? Why not? So to see some of the ways they introduced it, I was very happy to just kind of know that some of the feedback was taken. Not fully implemented yet, I think, all across the board, but to see it, I think it's great. And to the point of Jim Bobeck and who he is, I love that, because all this gray area and no surprises. Jim Bobeck represents one of the IDREs. He's an IDR, one of the independent dispute resolution entities. And I think even for them, there's some gray areas and areas of interpretation. So if you get an opportunity to dialogue with or engage or take part of comment periods when questions are being asked, please, this is the only way our voices are going to be heard in anesthesia. And we are best able to answer the questions because we're boots on the ground with it.
Totally. Okay, any more on the NSA IDR other than they're trying to make the insurance companies do what they are already obligated to do?
Yeah, well, he actually said something really interesting, which I think for us, the how-to matters. And I'm going to talk about who I thought was a superstar at the conference, Megan Rausch.
Oh, yes.
Because per Jim, like only 6.7% of the cases submitted were anesthesia. So I'm wondering if we are... Why is that? That's such a small number, yes, considering, ambulance, ER, radiology, right? We are one of the entities that's impacted by that. So do we not have a way to track it? Are we tracking our payments? If we don't have contracts, because these aren't contracts through NSA, do we have a way to find out this is how much money we're getting on average with a payer to fight this? Because there's an opportunity for us there, which when I talk about Megan Rausch, again, superstar. I think that's something that knowing that might get us a little more active. And then what is the why if you're on live or whatever? What is the why of why we're not using this? Is it a resource issue, which I think it probably is? Why aren't we actually using that process?
And I hope we're live streaming.
That'd be hilarious. Be like, we're just talking to ourselves.
Wouldn't be the first time. Won't be the last.
Right. That's why I pulled up here, because maybe it's easier for you to see him and see, make sure this.
I don't know. Can you check on that one? And
no,
see
you have to do. You have to
okay,
do. The,
so let me click over here and see. I see us. I see live. I see timer.
My grandkids are here, so I'm gonna need to. I wish I didn't see myself. I need you to ignore my bags because my grandbabies are so much energy,
and they're so cute.
They are, but God, I need some of that energy.
Okay, so now I just basically did part of the first day here. So on next, I'm recognizing customers, Arnie Peterson, which I didn't get to his second one, which had to do with security. So you've got notes, and I've got some mental notes that I want to share. And so his first one on that first day was recognizing customers and just making sure that you have mechanisms. And I can speak to this a little bit because when my anesthesia group was a group back pre-2001, 2002, we had gone through a company, and I can't remember who they were called, but I'm not trying to push companies anyway. But it was a way of having our patients fill out after they had their anesthesia, their satisfaction with it. It was a way to measure how our anesthesia department was doing. So I know that everyone knows the only way that you can recognize issues or fix something is if you measure it. Yeah. So that was our way of doing it. So he did talk about anesthesia groups, measuring patient satisfaction, data-driven decision-making, and then realizing that your patients are truly your customers. When I started in anesthesia in 1983, I think I was a little offended to think of patients as customers because we're not. I was a patient not long before that, and I don't want to be treated like a customer. I didn't want to be there. But over the years, I've gained some wisdom and some insight, and we really are. We are consumers of medical services, which makes us a customer. So we have the right to know how much are we going to be charged? Are you in our network? If we didn't get a good service, who are we going to complain to and things like that? So now that I see it from the other side of the coin, I understand it a little bit better. And I'm going to turn it over to Doris for her thoughts.
You know, I think it's a great point. I think whether we're doing consulting or you're practicing medicine, I think it's really important to find out who your customer is, because like even with being self-employed, I guess I often say, listen, I think self-employment is a myth, even though I guess I'm self-employed and we're self-employed, because at the end of it, right, I have to serve someone. I'm serving someone. And if you think, well, that patient doesn't have a choice, they come into a hospital and we're just there. Well, they chose to go to that hospital, and I may not go to that hospital if I think the treatment that I'm going to receive is less than average or less than standard, right? So I think thinking of how can we best serve who we're serving in any model, in any industry is really important. So yeah, I thought I didn't get to see that whole session, but yeah, I think that's a great one.
And before I move off of Arnie, because there's no way we could do that whole meeting. So that's why it's called In a Nutshell. But Arnie did an excellent presentation. I know you have a few notes on this one on the security side. So one of the things he was talking about, and AIABPM for years has used the USB ports instead of paper. Yeah. I'm so old school. I have a library of books this thick, and I used to print out my PowerPoint pages if they didn't provide the books, so that I had something tangible, because I'm a touchy-feely person. I'm okay moving to the USBs. I don't print them as much anymore, but even USBs carry a risk. Yeah. So some of the companies do not allow the staff that attends these meetings to come back and stick a AIABPM or meeting USB in their work computers. Yeah. So last year they moved to having it also available through a download on the internet. And that's just an awareness that, I just didn't have. So it made me more cognizant of having my USBs checked when I order them, making sure that I have the computer company and I call them my IT people, come check me to see, do I have any risks here? How do I tell if somebody's in my computer? They back up for me off system every night, and I have them watch my system. So that's what I do for security. What about you?
Yeah, I anytime I'm working with patient information, I use Citrix ShareFile, which is the most. We don't touch anything unless it's on ShareFile. We share, everything gets on ShareFile itself. So that's what I do. But Arnie's session, I have to tell you, I was talking to like Pam and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so afraid.
It's because scary.
I can get into my mode and kind of do my thing without focus. One of the things I do is I listen to music. And I'm thinking, there's no harm. Let me launch my Pandora and then log into things. He's like, no. Even thinking, okay, when I travel hotels, I have an air card that I take with me that has a password. And since the meeting, I make sure I actually added the Norton to my phone. I use a secure VPN. Even though I'm on my own air card, I also add my VPN to kind of hide my address as another measure, because I didn't know. I thought I was being super safe. God bless my team. Because when I find out stuff like this, I'm like, we need to have a quick meet really quick. Let's just make sure, okay, are we doing this? And just making sure. So it was an awareness for me to know that, hey, when I'm online listening to Pandora or any of those things, that I might have an increased risk that I wasn't aware of. So that was knowledge that I appreciated having, but I'm always looking at ways to kind of do more. So I don't want to be the cause of a risk.
Exactly.
I have clients that do security testing, so they'll send these phishing kind of emails internally to see if we click on them
easily.
Yeah, because that's an avenue for someone to get in your system. And I'm not going to make.
We get emails from people that say, "Don't open this because it was not me."
Yeah.
Yes.
People know for me. And
you caught me like in the nick of time where I would have opened something had Doris not said, because you sent me a text message and said, don't open this message, because, and I was like, I would have opened that message because I would have trusted them. So Doris saved my proverbial butt.
So thank God for Dr. Greenberg, who reached out to say, hey, there was and I think about it this way. I'm paranoid, I guess. You cannot send me a hyperlink if we have not had dialogue about you sending me a hyperlink. I'll immediately delete it. Right. So Kelly, hey, did you send me this link? Hey, Bobby, did you say anybody? Because that's how it goes. I had a client who was hacked and they sent me a link. They sent me an email with a link. And I'm thinking, well, what is she sending me a link about? What is this? So I called her and said, I'm like, hey, what is this link about that you sent me? She said, I didn't send you a link. I said, no, this morning, this time. And she said, I didn't send you that. That's how they discovered they were hacked.
Yes.
So when someone gets into one of your client systems or someone that their system, it looks like it's legit and it's not. So I think hyper awareness, I don't think there's anything wrong. If you sent me a link, we should be connected.
Yes.
Right. For me to find out via email, text, or some way that you actually sent me that link. Otherwise, there's no FYI for me. I'm not going to click it. And per Arnie's session, that's probably a great idea.
Yeah. Don't click it. And I had a customer text me once and say, if you get something from me, don't open it. So if you do that, and you have the opportunity to send it to someone else, let them know, because it helps us.
Yep.
All right. So I happen to do this session. Let's talk about payments. Wow, I know the whole thing, but I'm not going to do the whole thing. So breaking it into a nutshell as succinctly as possible, I went over the documentation to claims processing and beyond, going through all of the checks and balances, because fortunately enough for me, my anesthesia career was lived backwards. Meaning not necessarily backwards, but I started at the bottom and worked my way all the way through every job in the office until I was the administrator 18 years later. Well, quicker than that, but you get the point. So there's not any part of that process that I don't understand and that I don't know needs a checks and balances. So when people say, why are you balancing your adjustments? Because you could have screwed them up. You know that if you balance your payments to the bank, you're good. If you balance your adjustments to what you're expecting based on contractual allowances or charity or whatever, meaning you have to document what kind of adjustment it was, then you're good. I mean, you know what they are. But if you're bulking everything under adjustments, bad move. Discussing the anesthesia charges and expected payments. Believe it or not, they're both important. You have to make sure that you know your contracted rates and that your billing company knows your contracted rate. And I call it the Goldilocks of expectations. You don't want to get too little and you don't want to get too much. You want your contract rate payments to be just right. And if they're not, it's up to you to fix them. The insurance company, they're making a mistake one way or the other, and it could be that they didn't update their system, but whatever it is, it's your responsibility on behalf of your physician to do this. They're in the ORs. They don't do this kind of stuff. This is you as the office staff or you as the billing company that you check these things for them. And then I also did the disparity between Medicare and commercial payers. It is not a secret that for the past 30 years, that's 30, in case you didn't catch how long it's been a problem, anesthesia has been underpaid by virtually everyone. Medicare, of course, but then the commercial payers look at Medicare and say, well, we're overpaying you. No, you're not. You have to pay anesthesia groups enough to be able to pay their bills and their staff. So there's a huge disparity. Commercial payers try to tie their rates to the Medicare, and they cannot do that. And I could talk for the whole hour, but I'm not. Over to you, Doris.
No, I know. I think there's an opportunity there as well, because I hope, I wish, and I'll speak it and maybe it comes into existence, that they're no longer able to use Medicare as a reference. And I think that's important to understand even what Medicare is. Like, this is all of our money. This is not a for-profit system. Medicare doesn't make money off this, but insurers do. So I think to use something like Medicare as a baseline is really problematic. But this also goes to the point on bullet 2 about there being no little jobs, right? True. I will, when I include payments in my audits, I will give clients based on like a formula what their allowable rate was or what they got per unit, their conversion factor, in case they don't have their contracts. I'm like, listen, you don't have your contracts, but maybe you want to go back and see if this makes sense. And if it's not something someone you're contracted with, at least track that so you can say we should be pushing those through the No Surprises Act.
True.
Right? Because to get money, but where it becomes really important, and Megan Roush made a really important point there, what level of IDR process you go through that is state versus federal is going to depend on the funding type. And do you have that level of granularity? Are we just putting all the blues in together? I'll sometimes see, for example, in a lot of client systems, they're like Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO, HMO. And I'm not saying that's unimportant, like great, but
what contract?
Yeah, who, right? What's the product type and what does that look like? How are they funding that? Is that a self-insured Blue Cross plan? Is that a group plan? Is it a Medicare? Is it a Medicaid? That becomes more important. And if you're not paid the way you want to be paid, that you're dead in the water, right? There's no way if you don't have that detail. So to the point of it being no little jobs, all I can tell you is how you were paid. I don't know whether that's right or not. And when we think about even auditing, they think about auditing, I think, in the sense of what we do, but you don't. Everything that has a process can be audited, right?
True.
So if you run a report and you look at your payments and you're like, these are outliers, pull up the card, look at the product type, maybe it's misclassified. That can be cleaned up before you start running some of your reports to get your analytics. So I think, yeah, for the payments, it's way deeper than just what you got paid. We've got to go back to the start of it and how it was entered into your system. And does your system have that level of granularity that you can capture? Can you tie it to product type? And moreover, can you run the kind of reports with the level of detail that you need?
And don't let the word auditing scare you. It's like a bad connotation to it all the time, but it's not. Call it a review if it makes you feel better. But you should be doing internal reviews. External is always helpful. We both do external. I know sometimes people think that we actually work together, and we do volunteer, but we each do auditing, reviewing on our own, and we have different ways of doing it. And other people have different ways of doing it too. But you always want to make sure that it's someone who speaks the language of anesthesia. Because I have gone in, and I'm sure you have to someone else's audit or review where they were telling them to do something the wrong way. And I'm like, okay, obviously they don't know anesthesia. This is a different language. You cannot be a surgical coder and come in and do anesthesia reviews without having looked up the resources to help you. And we'll move into that with the anesthesia coding updates. I'll just move right up to Dina's session because we have anesthesia resources. We have the ASA relative value guide, must have. We have the ASA crosswalk, must have, whether it's electronic Doris uses or the paper version that I use. Either one of them. There are other crosswalks, but you have to use a little bit of caution because there have been some issues or problems in all the crosswalks, to be honest, because even the ASA has in the front of their book something that says if you see something wrong, you know, and your coding expertise lets you understand that this might be a code that's not listed, go ahead and use it. These are examples, not an exhaustive list of what it is, but then let us know, because there's a form in the front of the book, that there's a problem in here. I haven't seen that with other types of crosswalks where they say, let us know if there's a problem and we'll fix it. So the must-have anesthesia resources that Dina went through were the ASA tools that you have. If you're a member, you get a reduced rate for those, but please have them. The correct coding initiative, which is now free. It used to be in print and you had to pay for it, but they're online now and free. What else am I missing? The correct coding initiative, CMS, Chapter 12, Section 50. And then, you know, your standard coding books, but you have to have an understanding that anesthesia coding is just a little bit different than surgical or hospital or inpatient coding, because we're looking for reasons why the patient is having anesthesia, and then we're supporting that with diagnosis codes. So a lot of the issues that Dina was talking about were, and she used both personal and review examples of saying you didn't have these diagnosis codes supported or they're inaccurate. And I can speak to a personal one of this from my sister, who they gave her diabetes before she was ever diagnosed with diabetes, and that affected her ability to get insurance.
Yes.
So she talked about the 10 steps to correct coding for ICD. I'm pretty sure they're in the book.
Yeah.
And then the importance of assigning the correct codes, because it's almost unfixable when you assign the wrong code. Even if you go back and say, I'm going to fix it, how do you pull it back out of that database? And over to you, Doris.
Yeah, and I think that's an important note for providers to keep in mind, because real world providers will try to be helpful to say something is what it isn't to help the patient, right? And it's not helping the patient if it's dishonest and it's still your license. To the point also about the crosswalk, again, great resource, but we do have to work together to get it there. But how do you? So I use the term deviation, and for my clients, I send them my deviation policy for them to use if they decide, right? Because I even have a deviation policy, because I understand there's going to be a lag time from the time you submit that form that's in the front of the book that says, hey, AESA, I don't agree with this particular crosswalk option. I think it should be this, or add something to it. There's like a lag time. And do you wait until they agree or disagree until you do it? Or do you use the guidance they give you that it's a guide and not a Bible, right? So if you decide to do something other than what's in the crosswalk, I find like everything should be uniform. You know, I'm an SOP kind of person. Like, this is very much a process thing, right? So like, okay, even as an auditor, it's helpful to me if you do something different than what's in the book. I may agree with it or not, but have it written so it's not the Wild West. Because how do you audit if every individual person, you've got 50 coders and they get to decide what they use and how well I deviate. Okay, why did you deviate? What's your logic? So we do it with logic to say, this is what they recommend, this is what we recommend, this is why, right? So, and this is our policy that we're following with the ASA guidance to say it's okay. Yeah, so I think that that's really important. I think to your point as well, the point before we talked about auditing, that's great. Kelly audits, I audit, there are different auditors, but I think, and you know, I'm a foodie, so I got to do
She's a foodie.
So I look at everything through the concepts of food because I really like food, but it's kind of like a recipe, right? And we just had like chicken pot pie. So here's the thing, like we can all make chicken pot pie. What we put in it and our process for making it is different, right? One may be longer, one may be shorter. It's going to be a chicken pot pie at the end, but the how. So when you think about auditing, it's good to get different opinions as well, because some people go, well, we've been audited. No one's ever told us that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we're educating providers, that becomes an issue as well. I said, listen, I can't be accountable for what someone didn't tell you. Yes. I've been doing this the first time I'm hearing it. When did this happen? When did it change? And I said, but here's the thing. It hasn't changed. It's been that way for 15 years now. I don't know why you're just hearing it, because I wasn't in that seat of it, right? So that's where it helps to think about the process and get varying opinions to really cover yourself from a risk perspective.
And if you missed an article that I wrote, I'll plug it. It was in the communique and the AAPC blog or article about misinformation or disinformation, because 2010, things were changed about teaching. 2024, I heard somebody still talking about the old way pre-2010 of doing things. And I'm like, how do you go 14 years without realizing something changed?
Yeah.
Very important. And chicken pot pie, maybe no mushrooms.
Right. Not for my husband.
No. Okay. Oh, my favorite. We love Dr. Pam.
We love you, Dr. Pam.
We do love you, Dr. Pam. So she has done sessions with us at AIABPM for a few different years, but it's always so much fun for her because she makes it relative to the clinical side, but helps us understand it from the coding billing side. So this session was excellent tips on how to engage and when to engage your clinical staff, not when they're busy setting up their cases for the day or whatever. So she went through when is the best time to reach them. And sometimes what you have to do is ask them, when is the best time to reach you? One of my tricks with my physicians, I'm going to share a funny story, is I would say, is this a good time for you? And if they say no, then I say, can you call me back when it is? Bam. If they answered, sometimes I said it, this is one of my doctors. I loved my Dr. Sarmiento. He has passed, and I still love Dr. Sarmiento. But I called him and he answered, and I said, is this a good time for you? And he said, no, I'm on the toilet. And I said, why did you answer?
Because I care that much about you, Kelly.
He did. He said, because you called me. I was like, okay. Love Dr. Sarmiento. I still love you. Okay, so times to engage when your staff, not when they're in the bathroom. Reviewing models for communicating effectively. So she went through Maslow's hierarchy, Cotter's ADKAR, which I went ahead and put that acronym because you know we get acronymed to death. And then reading lists for additional help. And she had a whole list. I just gave a few because I love to hear the languages of love. In fact, I think, didn't I use that here while we were here? Because I think your husband did something for you. And I'm like, that's the language of love.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know when somebody loves you because they do something for you without even telling you why they're doing it. But read the book. And then how to talk to anyone. So did you do this one? Do you have some notes on Dr. Pam's you want to add?
Yeah, I think, and it connects to the conversation we had with the resident. And I've started to practice this because for me, most importantly, I want to make sure you have my intent of the ear. So that's why, listen, I don't respond maybe as quickly as you might want me to. I may not answer. I've learned to not answer the phone every time it rings, just from not just a balance perspective, but if I can't give you my attention, it's why have the call. So I think, is that a good time for you is something to apply even in scheduled meetings, especially when you're dialoguing with physicians, because they have so much on their plate. Even when you talk about compliance, there's quality, clinical quality, there's reimbursement, there's all these asks for them. And you may be on their schedule, but it doesn't mean it's ideal. They may be made that space, but it still may not be ideal. Things come up, right? So I think to start that with, is this, hey, I know this is our meeting. Is this a good time for you? And that also allows them to put it in where it really works for them, as opposed to, no, I need you now. I need you now. I need you now. Well, now it's not great for me, right? So I think factoring that's important.
Off topic, but this is going to be very important. Doris shared something on social media about someone using that as a trick to scam a physician. I need you now. Go get your doc out of the OR. Share that.
Yes. So this came to me with one of my compliance friends. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the provider did this. This provider got a call. And I think I can see how it would happen. And this is why physicians or practitioners, please don't disengage. I know the billing stuff isn't fun for you because you don't learn it and it's really not what you want to do, but you can't disconnect at this level. So this physician was in the OR. They got a call saying, we know Dr. X is in the OR right now. They're about to go on the exclusion list. And we need to speak to the provider right now. We're calling from the DOJ, right? So someone, and this is where I say it's really a breakdown at the facility level as well, because why on earth did that reception, whatever, whoever that call got, why did they even route the call to the provider? Yes. They pull the provider from the OR or whatever. The provider told, yep, you've got to pay this money today or you're going on the exclusion list. And you've got to pay this 10 grand, I think it was $10,000 is maybe what they hit this provider for. Other providers had gotten the call, either didn't answer or won our call. So I wonder, how did they get these names? This is where I say a lot of the offshoring could be a problem because how do you know?
Medical staff. When you go to the website, a lot of times they'll have the medical staff by department.
Yeah, but I don't know. It made me really nervous. I think it gave credibility to the provider because it came through the facility. And why would you give it to me if not? The provider thought about it after and called the compliance department. And they're like, okay, first, I say a breakdown in education because one, you can't pay your way off an OIG list. If you're going to be excluded, they've already done an investigation, you lost, and you're going to be excluded. Secondly, it's not something they call. Third, they don't take Venmo, PayPal, iPhone, iCards. What do they call it? iTunes gift cards, anything like that. And it sounds a little bit laughable, but knowing how detached physicians are from it, if you're telling me I can't practice and I just need to handle this right now, it could be a disengaged physician that's why it happened, or the fact that it came through the facility they were working in, it lent credibility. So this is where, if you ever wonder about that, you have a compliance department, route those kind of things through your compliance department. It blew my mind, and I'm thinking it wouldn't have happened to me because we do this. But for the physicians, they don't do this. For the practitioners, they don't. And I was like, have you ever heard anything?
When she called to say, have you heard? I said, it's a scam. I think I used a different term, but
we can't use
I said,
here.
This is BS. Yeah, no, this doesn't happen. For the reasons Doris said, you've been through an investigation. This is going to be an official. This will not be a phone call in an OR. So I'm looking, because I think what I have left here are resources shared. And I will tell you, this is a Word document. I can't tell. I'm going to go peek here. We've been doing this live and contemporaneously for the past 40 minutes. I don't see that anybody's chatted to us. So it's a Sunday. It's okay. We're not, we're okay with that. But if you have questions and you want to send them through to me, I also want to plug Doris's. Doris, I made a goal to do at least once a month on my YouTube something. And I usually try to keep it like within 10, 15 minutes. That's what I try to do. I'm not always successful, but this is definitely over that. But if you have the time to listen, to learn, then do it. Now, Doris has a website, YouTube channel called Doris the Coder, which she had hers long before I had mine.
And I haven't done anything.
And she helped me set mine up. So she's my anesthesia friend for life. We should have a term for that, an acronym. Anesthesia friend for life, AFFL. Or something. She's with her SOPs, so we'll figure this out. Yeah,
an acronym to make it work.
Yeah, we'll do an acronym. But yeah, she's a wonderful resource.
I wanted to share a couple more.
Good. I'm going to turn it back to you.
This a lot. Again, speaking at the sessions, I didn't get to go to all of the sessions that I wanted to because we had to speak at it as well. But yes, Dr. Rapaja, Megan Roush. I said I'd go back to her because what's that? I'm ADD. I'm just like. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where the next AIABPM conference is actually going to be.
I'm going to leave this up now.
So Megan Roush did IDR Process for Success. I think she had some really great points that we were like, wait, did she say what? Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Is that true?
Right.
$300 and something per unit?
Yeah. I actually had a chart for it and we confirmed it because I'm like, that just can't be right. When it comes to, and this should be, if nothing at all, the take home point on IDR for your practice to use it. You know how you bill a claim, right? And let's say you underbilled it or, maybe less per unit. Typically, your payment is always going to be the lower of what you bill versus what is allowed, right? In the IDR process, the aha moment for me was that you could actually get more than you initially billed. So it's something like a pain and suffering kind of thing, right? So if I had to do extra work on this, you can get more than you initially billed. And what the endoscopy was $300.
It was over $300, and that's the one I'm like, but it was inclusive of the cost of the IDR process. So then, still worth it. But we were like, no, I don't see this ever kind of rates for endoscopies or any of them. I mean, the low end was like 200 and something per unit, and the high end was over 300 per unit.
So if that's not incentive for you, I don't know if you don't want 200 a unit. I mean, we have no stake in it. Our rates are where they are, but like I would be working for that and using the IDR process a little bit more. Payers are required, she said, to actually disclose that information on your EOB. So if you're not getting that, that's a flag. That's something you want to follow up with as well. I was sad to learn though that you have to follow the state level for Florida and Texas, and that Florida, where we are, doesn't have, basically you have to sue them. They don't have an IDR. And that's something legislatively like
they have been suing. There's been some suits in the state of Florida. I'll just say that.
Just think about it. If the process is so complex that we're not using the IDR process in other states, right? Because of resource issues. how much more of an issue is going to be if I got to actually do a lawsuit for it. So I think Florida, God bless the sun here, and it's all that, but that has to be fixed at some point. We shouldn't have to get an actual lawsuit
to fight for your money.
Yeah, because it's another thing for the payers to use, I think, to take money from the providers that they're entitled to. What else in it? It was so much. When I say my notes on this was absolutely long.
I had to cut mine down.
The patient cost share, they said, couldn't be increased. So I thought that was great too, post IDR process. So once they've processed the cost share to that patient and it goes through the IDR, you can't put any more money on that patient. So if you think, oh no, I don't want to do this because it may be a disadvantage to the patient. No, sir, they didn't pay you. That's the whole purpose of the No Surprises Act and the IDR process. You cannot involve the patient. You two, provider and payer, have to fight it out. So providers, if one of the reasons you're not doing that is you're worried about the patient, that should be quelled. You shouldn't have to worry about that. What was another one? I already talked about Arnie Peterson. That was great. And it was.
Excuse me.
Hello, we have a husband sticking a head out, which must mean it's almost time to wrap this up. Yes?
Well, I'm a foodie, and once they say it's time to eat, it is time to eat, and I'm gonna go. But yeah, the next AIABPM.
Oh yeah, let me do that real quick.
I don't think the
if the website's not updated yet, but I'll show you on social media if you're following. Oh my gosh, this place looks so exciting. It's Gila River and Resorts and Casinos. I've already posted a few on social media, but this is, I think, at the Wild Horse Pass is where it's going to be, and I'll make sure of that. I've already registered, and now I need to figure out how to get myself a number because my goodness, you know I'm not missing it.
So our next things we've got going on. So we've got what Decision Health is November.
Decision Health is virtual in November.
Virtual in November.
Oh, let me go to my website. Let me go pull that up because I have all these meetings on my website, you guys. Whether I'm speaking or not, and I like to say this, if I'm speaking, it's on speaking engagements. If not, it's on seminars and education. And there is no school for this. You want to learn? Here you go. YouTube University, or come to these meetings. And then I've already got the registration on there for the November 4th and 6th for anesthesia. I'll be doing that, and Doris and Pam Linton.
Yep.
And is it Marcy and Dr. Laura, I think? Yep. Check the agenda. And then pain management. Oh, my goodness. So this is the agenda. Well, you know, I stick away. I don't go to the pain management, but Doris does. So if you want to see those, it'll be on there as well.
And then
November
ASA
17th,
Advance.
Right here. ASA
January
Advance.
23rd. Is it the 26th? Okay. It's January 23rd. We know to start at the Paris in Las Vegas for you folks that absolutely love Vegas.
As soon as they update their website, it'll be on here because when you click here, it goes there. So I know it will be updated soon.
I was looking and it is in Phoenix, Arizona. They sent out the save the date a couple of days ago for the AIABPM. So in order, you've got virtual Decision Health in November, January ASA Advance. I'm excited. Hopefully Dr. Pam's going to be at that. Dr. Troyanos will be speaking. You and I will be there.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then AIABPM. Shannon Cameron.
Yes,
yep,
Shannon will be there. See you there, Shannon.
And then AIABPM is going to be in April. And I think it's the 19th through the 22nd. I'm annoyed I can't get it on the phone.
It's on our social media, so just watch for it there. And then I added one more because I just learned of this meeting last year, and it was fantastic. And it was the Association of Anesthesia Clinical Directors. I had never heard of it before, but they've been around a long time, and it was a fascinating meeting. I got to speak about the payments, similar to what I talked about in a nutshell. And again, just watching the surprise on the providers' faces when they learn things like this. You've got the dates.
Yep. Save the date, April 19th through the 22nd.
There you go.
In Phoenix, Arizona at the Gila River Resorts in Wild Horse Pass.
So you got the inside scoop. You got the meeting in a nutshell. You've got resources at your fingertips. And we are going to go to breakfast. Oh, if you want me to, I will send you this by Word. It's in a Word document. If you send me an email or put it in the chat, I'll try to check that later. Now, Doris, help me here. Help me.
Oh, Hal
Oh.
Nelson's too. I love Hal.
Oh,
Nelson's
Hal
endoscopy.
Nelson.
Yeah, he gave a tip just on that one before we adjourned.
Sure.
When you send letters to the insurance company on appeals and everything, he was saying, put that you CC the insurance commissioner on the bottom of the letter and notate that, because they have some kind of like hierarchical filing system where those go up the ladder
First
to
in
someone
line.
else, which becomes really important for endoscopies because they don't have the same base unit value with CMS and ASA. And if they're not paying you that extra unit for the screening to diagnostic, then you're losing a unit. They're not following the law. So Hal Nelson's tip on that was really fantastic. That was another one I wanted to share.
That was a bonus for you guys. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a good work week. Stay safe. Be the anesthesia friend. And anything to add?
Yeah, no. Have a great one. We're going to eat.
Yeah. Your stream will stop immediately and will no longer be live.